now we are going for next technical sessions, where we will expecting very brainstorming sessions from the experts in the field of library science, library information science. We have professors, we have corporate people from corporate field, we have the people from the library experiences, and we will get the requirements of all type of professionals and users in this case. So I request my all the distinguished delegates, if you have any questions, please put into the question answer that chat box. You can put the questions in the chat box or in question answer sessions, whatever you like. Okay, and we will give the feedback form at the end of the last session. So please don't ask the feedback form in the chat. We will put in the feedback form after finishing that one, so you can give a good feedback regarding the resource persons and the program. So Dr. B. Shadrach, he is currently serving the Commonwealth of Learning as advisor of skills. Dr. Shadrach, working under the leadership of Sir Tim Berners-Lee, was also Asian coordinator of the World Wide Web Foundation for his Alliance for Affordable Internet (A4AI) program. In this capacity, he helped to build coalition of private and public and civil society organizations to advance the shared aim of affordable access to both mobile and fixed internet Asia. Prior to the above assignments, Dr. Shadrach served as a global CEO of telecenter.org Foundation. Prior to that, Shadrach worked for IDRC Canada, managing ICT for digital research grants in Asia. As a global head of telecenter.org Academy program for 5 years since 2016, he spent time developing the ecosystem for training 1 million knowledge workers at the grassroots in Asia, Europe, Africa, and Latin America. In his more than 3 decades of long career since 1986, Dr. Shadrach has managed ICT for D programs in over 35 nations around the world. He has consulted the Department of International Development UK, the International Telecommunication Union, the Asian Development Bank, Practical Action UK, United Nations Development Programme, the Open University UK, and ICT Agency of Sri Lanka. For his thesis of measuring the impact of rural information access initiatives, Dr. Shadrach has awarded a PhD by Aligarh University in UK. With these words, I would like to invite Dr. Ahmed Shadrach for his speech on LIS education. Over to Dr. Shadrach.
Thank you, Dr. Naushad. Thank you, Professor Lakshman Rao, my friend Christine McKenzie, and many colleagues who are there. I consider this as a huge opportunity to discuss the role of library and information science education for the future. The topic given to us is really apt. Re-envisioning library and information science education, the present status and the future trends, which actually present to us 5 keywords for me. Re-envisioning, that itself is a mega attempt for any domain. Library and information science education is a core area that in question today, in the backlight of education itself, which is changing, and the new education policies is there for us to look at, not just look at, but to implement with the required resources. We also talk about the present status and the future trends. And when we talk about re-envisioning, it's all about reconceiving and re-envisaging, refancying, reimagining, realizing or re-realizing or rethinking. Why do we need to do this? Because the library and information science education today is revolved around certain prisms certain limitations, and it revolves also around the present idea of librarianship and the library services. But when it comes to the backdrop of education, which is changing in many parts of the world, particularly in India with the national education policy in after three decades that has come into play, we see that the purpose of education is achieving human potential, the full human potential, developing an equitable and just society, and promoting national development. This is the backdrop for which our policymakers understand education to be the cornerstone. And against this backdrop, many of the faculties would need to retune, reimagine, re-envision, re-fancy, rethink their education. Rightly so, the library science education as well, which, if I understand correctly, is revolving around the basics, center management, classification, cataloging, information retrieval, and so on. But it also needs to take into account, as the conference theme suggests, the future trends. So let me start with the whole idea of future trends. And Ms. Christine McKenzie earlier alluded to a number of things that IFLA has undertaken in the recent years, particularly as the leader of librarianship around the world, as a think tank, as a thought leader. IFLA has been doing a lot of good things. And one of such things is also looking at the future trends in technology in particular that strives us towards the change, which also actually informs the visioning exercise of IFLA. And she spoke to this particular aspect at length. Now, if we look at the future trends, which is the cornerstone of your conference theme, while we take cognizance of many other facts, we cannot really miss out on the COVID-19 phenomenon, which actually on many grounds seem to be redefining the world, and the new normal seems to be very different from the new normals every now and then we encounter. The change that is happening, COVID has brought about, it is immense. We are not able to really understand the future that effectively well, but also it presents an opportunity. We cannot really shrug off and say that COVID is gone. It came and gone. It is now gone, and we can conduct our business as usual. No, the business is not going to be as usual, and I think we need to be mindful of that. The future trends also point to the evolution of new forms of digital resources, whether it's the augmented reality resources, virtual reality resources, and the digital objects that we are now encountering in the newer world. We're also looking at as future trends shared prosperity of smart cities, and again in the inaugural talk, Ms. Christine McKenzie mentioned about the population movement within countries, particularly in a country like India, where there is a move under the Atal mission to create a number of smart cities and shared prosperities for people. We also recognize as future trends a whole new world of online education and online knowledge-seeking behavior. The universities are changing. People, when they cannot go to the universities come to you at your doorsteps. And we have seen in the last 4 or 5 months that the primary education system, the school education system, adapt itself very quickly as compared to the university system and the higher education system. And we need to actually recognize this future trend as well. But more than anything else, what is really phenomenal today is the GAFA-M factor, what they call the Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft factor. The digital attendance assistants like Cortana and Alexa and others, and also the new technologies for information retrieval, whether it is artificial intelligence, machine learning, the algorithms that are enabling us to optimize search technologies, but also the exploration and exploitation techniques that have come into play in terms of governing what needs to be, what is offered to people. Today, as we all know, just 10 web systems dominate 90% of web searches, which in itself a new phenomenon which never existed in the past. So when it comes to these kinds of future trends, we need to really re-envision our library science education. And when I look at the Aligarh Muslim University library science offerings itself, I recognize that there is a lot of importance given to the basics of librarianship, cataloging, classification, center management, information technology, information retrieval and repackaging, research and statistical methods. These are the subjects offered in the bachelor's and master's degree programs. And interestingly, I think the dean who spoke earlier, also the vice chancellor mentioned about the changes in the developed economies, and India is also growing to be one. And if you look at the objectives of library science education in many geographies, including the place where I come from, where I reside now, the University of British Columbia, for instance, writes the objectives as applying technology informatics skills to solve specific industry, which could be school, which could be special library, which could be government library, could be public library, to solve specific industries, data and information management problems, with a focus on usability and designing for users. So there is a lot of emphasis beyond cataloging, classification to usability and user design, user services. And rightly so, the focus is more on data services, data sciences, community and culture, information interaction and design, designing for people, youth services and literature, service management and information organization, information analysis and management, data resource management. So a lot of things are around information management, information services, information retrieval, data sciences, but more so designing for people, designing services and so on. I think the emphasis has, it's a polarized world. We can see the emphasis to be differing when it comes to the future trends. And also, I should point out here that the current objectives of library education, even in the West, in the United States, in Scandinavia, in Australia, in Canada, will very soon change, because the future trends would govern the way library education actually skills people who would then manage information, manage the future of information seeking behavior, and meet the demands of the people. Why do we need to re-envision? Again, I want to emphasize on certain things, that the future of library education itself would change, and not just the library practice overall. The education practice itself would change. And this is where we need to recognize that we need to come up with specific objectives of why we want to deliver library science education, library and information science education. What is our disposition? Is the duration correct? We are offering now 1 year BLIS and 1 year MLIS. Are these correct? Are the transactions carried out properly? The pedagogy that we now seem to be applying, would it hold true for the next 10 years or so? And the ways of learning, which is face-to-face predominantly today, would that change? And what is the industry looks like, the market needs are? Whether are they looking for academic degrees like the public sector does, or do they look for skills in people? And those skills, could those skills be offered in a kind of micro-credential manner? These are the questions that we need to ask when it comes to re-envisioning. Because today, there is a concept what they call anywhere school, teach from home, teach in partnership. These are all the trends that are also changing the paradigm of education today. And we need to also recognize this particular change that is occurring. Now, when it comes to the future of education, where library science education is positioned, and we have already realized that the new education policy is talking about the issues at various levels, particularly, what do we offer through library science education to individuals? And the new education policy talks about unleashing the human potential. Again, when it comes to library science and librarianship and library education, how do we prepare our future manpower of library managers, information science managers, to contribute to the societal value? And the new education policy recognizes the importance of equitable and just society. And lastly, more importantly, the future librarians who need to be trained through these library schools would need to also contribute to national and global goals, whether it is the Sustainable Development Goals or the national agenda, the development agenda, and of course innovation and harnessing networks. At the global level, the librarian is not going to be confined with the written literature, printed literature that's locally produced. 90% of the information that's sought after by any active learning community is not from local resources. These days, these are from global resources. That's where there is a need to enhance the skill to actually harness the potential at the global level, contributing to the national agenda. So the whole idea of librarianship for culture, entertainment, and renaissance, all these are to be defined around these three domain areas that the nation is progressing. At the individual level, unleashing the human potential, what could librarians do, and how could we design education in such a way that we can prepare these library stalwarts of tomorrow to actually realize the goal of the governments at the individual level, at the societal level, to bring about equitable and just society, and at the national and global level to contribute to the development agenda. How do we do this? How do we envision the future? I think this is where we all need to come together to come up with an overall vision. What is the vision of library education for tomorrow? Do we really have an idea of the vision that we want to have? And if India has so many library schools and also distance learning institutions, there needs to be a leadership here. There is a need for a leadership. Perhaps the Aligarh Muslim University can take on this role together with many other leaders around the world to come up with the overall vision for library education for the future. We just cannot continue what we have been teaching, and we cannot just be producing the kind of graduates that we are producing at this point in time, who would not end up to be contributing to those three objectives of new education policy, if you like. And who is our target? Is our target the 60 people that we recruit every year? Or is our target a larger target group out there? Or are we turning every person into a librarian? Or we are specializing librarianship amongst very special people who could come out and really do the job well? Or are we talking about micro-credentials for every profession so that a librarianship could be practiced by every profession? I think we need to also look at who our target for the future is, and what is that need that we are fulfilling. What is that need for a profession like this that we are trying to fulfill through equipping people through the library science education? And equally so, we need to realize and understand what is the product that we are selling. Are we selling a product that helps people to catalog and classify? Or are we selling a product that enable people to unleash the human potentials of people for tomorrow, societal values and national goals. And finally, I think we also need to come up with a set of business goals that align to the needs of the future. And I'm only giving you here very broad sketch thought process ideas, but fundamentally I have to underline this. The bottom line is we need change. Library science education is not producing the librarians for tomorrow. And we need to change, and the change is imminent today, now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Shadrach. Very interesting talk, and you have covered many areas within this around 15 minutes. You started with the present situation, and then future, and what you have to be prepared by the librarians, and what are the changes you have to make in our pedagogy, and redesigning the things. And what you said, I liking it, that we have to change our vision, and yes, we need a change. So that once you decide we need a change, so automatically we will be going for the change you have given. I got interested that we have to go for the potential resource generation. What you said, it is the need of the hour, because without resources, and you said about something about the business goal our library can do. So I have just one question regarding that. For example, marketing that we are doing it. So do you have any special some business method which you can use in university libraries where you can have some fund generation?
Fund generation for
Yes, as
what?
For university libraries. For example, we are also facing the difficulty for the resources to purchase other things. So, what the way we can have some sort of marketing or some community participated method can be adopted for raising the funds in universities?
Well, I think there are quite a few examples of how universities are generating resources to sustain the university education practice around the world, and we have seen the emergence of at least two major initiatives that have become very household names today. EDX and Coursera are the two major household names which came out of the university system. The Stanford professors and Harvard professors created this entire idea of MOOCs and the micro-credentialing and the aspect of monetizing education in a manner that it's affordable, but also it's succinct, it's aligned with the needs of tomorrow. So this is where the business acumen of certain entrepreneurial professors come into play, where they have redesigned the same education that they impart to the thousands of students on campus to actually now breaking the same education into various modules and making it available for millions of students. And when one student pays $10, it becomes almost $10 million revenue for the university, which actually resources the library facilities. And interestingly, if you go around the many developed countries, university libraries are the ones that are producing open education resources and proprietary education resources. The university librarians, through their studios, have actually become production units, and not just processing available information, but also producing newer content and new information. So there is a new paradigm shift in the way resources can be generated, which could flow back and even pay the salary of the vice chancellor. To that extent, people are generating revenue. They're not dependent on UGC or anybody else. But the libraries feed the vice chancellors in very many countries.
Okay, thank you. Actually, this changing paradigm shift is also visible in our India, especially this COVID pandemic. So, your suggestion, please don't discuss with the UGC. I think they will stop funding. They will say you go for this such type of course or other things. So now this is a reality actually. Now the government will also go for this virtual universities and virtual things, other things. So that is a way we should be very careful, and we should develop a best business model for our university libraries that we have to start. So accordingly, we have to create our generation, our students, to cope up with these challenges. Thank you very much, Dr. Shadrach, for accepting our invitation. Then I think you have already late night there. So thank you very much for all your patience. What I would like to say, there is I give over to Dr. Nazim. If there is any question from the audience, they will ask some questions. Otherwise, we will go for the next speaker. Over to Dr. Nazim.
Thank you, Professor Bashiruddin Shadrach. It is very knowledgeable lecture. So just highlighting the important incorporation in the curricula of the library science education. Sir, one thing which is important that I just realized that because there is a gap between the demand and the supply. Because as you mentioned in in your talk that there is a need to develop future manpower as per the requirement of the libraries and information institution. So ultimately, when we try to incorporate something in our curricula, but there is something which is left when we try to implement it due to many reasons. One of the important reasons, as I realize, is the effective, the availability of the teaching faculty to just teach that particular component which we want to incorporate. So how you can just suggest how we can resolve this issue?
I think teaching in partnership is what makes it very interesting, and the new education policy offers flexibility within the education practice. So it doesn't actually now call for a university degree in a particular discipline. So the 4-year university degree in future would be a mixture of arts, physics, commerce, librarianship, entrepreneurship. So there could be many subjects audited by a student in the future. So if we were to prepare the librarians of tomorrow with 21st century skills, with collaborative skills, critical thinking skills, skills for the future, their team working skills and so on, then we have an opportunity actually to collaborate with other faculty members, other universities. Now, it doesn't have to be within the same university where faculty members were to be drawn. You could collaborate with the Harvard University, for instance, sitting in Aligarh. You could call in professors from there and collaborate. So there are multiple ways to actually utilize the existing resources to maximize our teaching capacity. So the future is likely to be not the same 200 professors replicated in 200 universities, rather 200 professors made available to 200 other universities, so that you don't really become just a professor of Aligarh Muslim University alone, but you are a guest faculty member of 20 other universities around the world. So that's the model that's going to emerge.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir.